So we finally got a date for the Chrono Odyssey beta, and we're going to be jumping into all the information we currently have around the beta, my thoughts on it, and some other things around the coming launch of Chrono Odyssey. But without rambling on anymore, we're just going to jump right into the video and get amongst all the latest information we've got. So the most important information we've got to come out this weekend is obviously the beta dates themselves. Now the beta will begin on the 20th of June and it's going to last until the 23rd of June. For those living in the UK, it's going to start at about 8 AM on the 20th of June, so it is quite an early one, which is a bit unusual, but I suppose if you're off work that day, it really gives you a good amount of time to get involved with the testing phase. Kind of feel for the launch 8 AM for some of the EU guys that have took the time off or do manage to get in. This is pretty optimal, so we are kind of in a good stand this time around, and if testing continues like this, fortunately for the EU guys, it's kind of a win-win. So the one thing I will say is they're going to start granting access to people on the 19th of June, so the day before, and will continue to grant access to people over the course of the weekend. And what they're trying to do is, according to them, they want to ensure smooth queues, reliable server performance, and none of the progress you make will actually stem over to the launch of the game. It's going to be wiped once the test concludes. Obviously I've seen multiple other people addressing this, but it's just common sense. Betas rarely ever go over to the main game. You might get participation things, maybe Discord tags or skins, but none of this seems to be happening and none of it will progress over. So that's a safe bet to say it's not really going to give anyone an advantage unless you see people playing and having a bit more experience in the game. Personally, it's why I play. I like to get involved, I like to get that head start, I like to have an understanding of actually playing the game, and I think you can watch as many people as you want, but when you're actually in that game, reactive and getting immersed in it, I feel like it does give you that little bit of an advantage, but it's nothing really major. And personally, I've really hyped for the game, so I just want to get involved. What I will say is I thought they should have potentially give these keys out before the 19th of June, so people could potentially take some time off work. I personally would have probably popped it in just to run hard with the rest of the people and kind of push as much content as I could and test it, because I really do want to test this. Everyone's just seeing the positives, but I do like to see stuff for myself. I like to test it myself. I never like jumping into this trap of just thinking this game is all perfection, because I do not believe it will be that, but by no means am I ruling it out. This game is probably going to be one of the top 5 to 10 MMOs long term if it doesn't add pay to win and it does do what it's saying they're going to do, and if they stick to what they've spoke about before. I think another reason why you're not getting drops till the 19th of June is because I don't know if they want a great deal of people in initially, because they want to test the servers and they haven't done large scale multiplayer testing. This is obviously what the beta's for, to test the servers, test their capabilities as a studio and see what they're willing to do and how far they can push it. And after this, if you're not in the beta test, do know there will be more testing phases, so don't get too bummed out because it is going to be done randomly. So if you're a content creator, I wouldn't take it personal if you don't get in, and if you're just an average Joe who wants to play the game, I wouldn't take it personal either. They're just going to select people and they just want to gather the data and analytics so they can see what they're going to do and how they need to improve in the game before launch. During the beta, there's going to be 3 server regions, which are Europe, North America and Asia. The beta is going to be on Steam only, so unfortunately for those on console, you're not going to be able to take part in this initial testing. Unfortunately, there's nothing much you can do about that, but for you guys, I still would watch the streams over on Twitch, YouTube or wherever you're watching. Kind of check out the YouTube videos. I'll be covering here a lot of content there and keeping up to date with the latest news, so if you're not subscribed, do hit the subscribe button and keep an eye on the channel. And there's many other content creators out there also that'll be covering it. However, it isn't under NDA, so obviously like I'm saying there, we will be able to broadcast what we're doing and put the content out there, so you'll still be able to view the game from other people's perspectives. Now the beta will support 2 voice languages, which is English and Korean. Kind of makes sense, and I kind of seen this coming. However, the UI will support English, Korean, Japanese and traditional Chinese and simplified Chinese, so they're the main ones that are going to be covered for the beta testing, which kind of makes sense too, because most of the Europeans and the Americans all speak English, and for the other guys, you kind of covered there in the Asian market. So another big one I do think people need to look at is the requirements you're going to need to get on the beta. Now what I'll do is I'll pop the requirements of the beta on the screen now, and I'll give you a quick read of them. Now the minimum requirements is obviously Windows 10. Most folk are on Windows 11, but if you've got Windows 10 and forward, you're absolutely fine. Now the minimum requirements for a processor is going to be an i5 357K or an AMD FX 8310. When it comes to RAM, you're going to need 16 gigs of RAM and a graphics card that's no less than a GTX 1660 Ti or a Radeon RX 6600 and 50 gigabytes of storage data, which it's kind of not too bad. I think that's to be expected, but it does show I don't feel like this is going to be the whole chunk of the game. We're definitely going to be missing certain aspects. Now, ideally, if I was you, I would be aiming for the recommended requirements to minimize any issues with optimization or just general performance, because if you're playing a game that's Unreal Engine 5, and let's face it, these games are pushing the MMOs now. This is the next iteration or generation of MMOs, and they are going to be beast graphically, and the systems within them will be pushed. So I think for everyone who's looking to go Chrono, Archage, or many of the other ones, maybe even ZeniMax's future MMO, really start focusing on getting that PC upgraded. You will need it in the next couple of years. Your PCs will become redundant, so you really want to be pushing for recommended or what the optimal performance would be, so your higher end stuff. Now for recommended, it's Windows 10 again. It's an Intel i7 12 series and an AMD Ryzen 5 5600X, 32 gigabytes of RAM, and for graphics card it's going to be the RTX 3070, Radeon RX 6800 XT, and 50 gigabytes of available space. So as you can see, for the recommended requirements of Chrono Odyssey, it is definitely getting there now. They do want you having less potato PCs, and I think everyone should be going at this and understanding that if they don't do this, because I have seen some folk complain about the standards and what you're needing, if you want to play a next generation game and we don't want to hold the developers back, we need to be pushing the hardware in our PCs. We cannot expect a next generation game with amazing content and graphics if we're all running on potatoes. It's just going to limit the development team or the studio making whatever game comes. But they're the requirements. I do think they're fine for me. I will actually be upgrading my PC for when Archage comes, because they're even a bit more heavier, or for the launch of Chrono Odyssey. It's definitely not going to contain the full game. We already know this, but with that, we do know from the development interview things we should expect to see in the beta is some form of MSQ, so the main story quest, some cinematics in there, so we can kind of gauge where they're at graphically or just on the storytelling. Will it kind of be a click through and ignore the story? But I do not see Chrono Odyssey actually going that way. I think we might have some substantial storytelling and an epic saga over the years of development, so I'm quite interested to see where they go with this. We're also going to get Chrono Gates. As well as Chrono Gates, we're going to get trials, expedition dungeons, region bosses, bounty hunting, labyrinths, and time portals. So there's actually a fair bit of content there just for them 3 days. I don't imagine many people are actually going to reach endgame with that content to test, and people will want to repeat this to look for bugs and also just to really push that content. Now we kind of know this as these were all shown within the first developer interview, which was said to be more focused on what we're going to do in the first beta. I also think we'll see some of the gathering as well, probably crafting and enchanting systems, maybe on the smaller degree and not fully fleshed out, or on, you know, we don't have full access to that, as they've shown that in the developer interview already. However, I'm not really sure how much we're going to see or how fleshed out they'll be. That's something we just need to get in, test, and it's maybe also something they're needing feedback on so they can quickly iterate or balance change certain things. But once again, just to go back and kind of what I touched on before, do bear in mind the testing's only over 3 days, so I'm not sure if everything will get tested out thoroughly enough due to the lack of player time. During the first developer interview, they said during this CBT they wanted to focus on improving the multiplayer experience, as an MMORPG should be all about playing together. So I think they've give the content there for sure for people to test and for the more hardcore people going on it, but the main aim is literally just getting these servers working and the systems that are all for multiplayer functioning more efficiently for the launch of the game. Now, depending on how many of me and my guild get in, obviously depends on how much multiplayer content we'll actually get into. So for example, if only 1 or 2 of us get in, then it's not really enough for us to go and do region bosses, but if we do get in, we'll be trying to do as much content as possible over them 3 days and get as far into the game as possible. If there's leaderboards or the servers first, and say our guild did get in, we would be pushing that on a definite semi-hardcore to hardcore level and really going hard at it, really organised, because we want to test as much as possible, give as much feedback as possible, and just our competitive nature that we have within the community. Another one that I've seen come up is the CBT offering enough content. Well, I think the amount of content they're offering in the closed beta test is going to be more than enough content for this current CBT, just due to how short it is, and it's only going to be what, 3 days if you're off. If not, it's going to be like 1.5 to 2 days. I think if you add any more of a larger scale or endgame content, you just have enough time to get there. It's due to lack of notice. I think most people ain't going to get the time off work, which means they'll only be able to play maybe 2 days of the CBT, depending on when they're working or if they're free. And realistically, you're not going to take time off if you don't find out if you're in the test till the 19th. There is going to be more tests, so if you have got a couple of days or a week and you're thinking about going hard at this, I'd maybe leave that down the line for the next test, because I actually think the future tests will be more than 3 days. There might actually be 5 or 6. So this is just the first iteration of testing, and I do think it's fine. I know there's a lot of heat around it, but at the end of the day, it's a testing phase. We're getting to see the game. Nothing can be really hidden once we're in there. From the content we get, and we can really thoroughly check it all out and draw our own conclusions. And there's definitely confidence with what they're showing us, because there's no NDA. Was on the fence, and I'm definitely cautiously optimistic about this game, but I do genuinely think of all Korean games, potentially Chrono Odyssey and Archage could be real heavy hitters and could change the tide on the Korean game industry within the West when it comes to monetization. So definitely keep an eye on this game for sure. Do not write it off. So another big question is, where's the guild recruitment channel within Chrono Odyssey Discord? So there currently isn't one. It's been popped in suggestions a couple of times by different people, and the official response is, hello, we know the hype is real, and players usually start their recruitment for the guilds in advance to gather players around the server while the hype is still strong. However, there is no rush when there is no official information on how the test will work, what dates and what regions, same with how the guilds will work, etc. Recruitment guild channels for the Discord most likely will be added later on, with other channels such as bug reports and tips. We totally understand the need of a channel of this type, and we only ask you guys to bear with us a little longer. Now, this was actually said in May before any of the beta information got released, so hopefully we'll soon start to see these channels crop up as we quickly approach towards the beta. However, we don't really know what guild features are in place for this upcoming closed beta that we get sent out the keys on the 19th, so maybe the guild systems aren't even in place, and that's why they've held off it. Personally, I don't really understand this, because if the guild features aren't in place, they should just say the guild features aren't going to be in place. It's going to be small scale content. You can recruit if you want to play with people and get involved in communities, but we just don't have the guild features in place. I don't know if they are deliberately doing this because they really don't have the content, and if people are all playing together and all getting in together, that they'll push it and we'll realise there's a hollow shell and there's nothing to the game, just some fancy graphics. That's my pessimistic side definitely popping out from too many burns over the years, so I do wonder what's going on here. Or it could just be the simple fact of what they've just stated there, which is totally plausible as well, but I don't really see what harm allowing people to recruit, get hyped up, get their community ready, get to know the people they're going to be playing with, and kind of see the vibe. Now, if you guys are looking for a guild that's semi-hardcore to hardcore, that is definitely more of a family vibe, that also caters to competitive, competent gameplay, teamwork, and has that old school guild vibe where people are in VC, people do communicate, and we do incentivize that, you should check us out, because we're going to be pushing all content on Chrono Odyssey really hard and really getting involved and staying up to date with the latest metas, latest news, and all the information. But if you're more a casual player, then obviously we're not the guild for you. But check out the link in the description below if you are interested. Head over to our Discord. We're also recruiting heavily, and we are going to be going hard at Archage Chronicles when that's coming up, or the beta test. So if you're interested in any of that, hit us up, fill in the application. If you're good for us and we're good for you, we'll go from there. But as always, I really do appreciate you watching the video. I'll be keeping on top of the latest news, guides, tips, everything around these games. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, let me know in the comment section what you guys think of all this information and what you'd like to see in the future updates for the testing. Cheers.